Hello, my project is on the Russian-Ukrainian conflict and whether or not it can be justified. I'll be using a timeline that I've created to provide context because it is such a complicated issue that many people do not know it entirely. Stalin's policies were clear violations of human rights. Millions of people starving and millions being sent to labor camps where they were all denied the essentials for life were only a couple of the actively evil policies that Stalin created for Russia. He deported a large population of ethnic Russians into the industrial eastern Ukraine, which accounts for the great split in the population today. Stalin also dehumanized many people. In causing them to work in labor camps, they have had no chance to live normal lives and were treated like property. In 1954, Khrushchev gives Crimea to the Ukraine. Crimea is full of ethnic Russians, which also contributes to the population split even more. The wealthy people in the Ukraine are living in the east, and the poorer ethnic Ukrainians are living in the west. On December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union collapses, and 90% of the people living in the Ukraine vote to be independent from Russia. The Ukrainians did not want to be ruled by any more Russian tyrants. In a believed to be rigged election, Viktor Yanukovych wins in June 2004. He is pro-Russian and a majority of his votes come from eastern Ukraine, which is where mainly the Russian people were. There is an orange revolution right after Yanukovych is elected because they do not want him to strengthen ties with Russia. Yushchenko leads this revolution and creates pressure for a second election to be held. Yushchenko wins this second election. He's pro-EU, but is not able to solve many of the economic problems in Russia. Although its GDP was steadily growing, it dropped 20% in 2008. Yushchenko made an attempt at Rawls's method of maximizing the minimum by helping Western Ukraine, which was mainly poverty-stricken. In order for GDP to increase once again, he had to take the poor ethnic Ukrainians out of their cycles of socialization, where they continued to be farmers or holding jobs that paid very little. They were unable to get out of their situation and relied on Yushchenko, who got a majority of the votes from the West, to help them. February 26, 2010, Yanukovych is re-elected because many people are displeased at Yushchenko's attempt at running the government. He was very ineffective in helping the economy grow. On November 21, 2013, Yanukovych abandons plans to bind with the European Union for a chance to create stronger ties with Russia. He is unable to fulfill the utilitarian idea of having the most happiness for the most amount of people. He serves the Russians, which is a minority compared to the ethnic Ukrainians. He does the opposite of the utilitarian idea because he wants to help the eastern part of Ukraine, which is much more industrialized and complex than the rest of the country. Protests begin in Kiev after Yanukovych's decision, and on January 22nd, the first protesters are killed in Kiev. On February 18th, around 26 protesters are killed in Kiev and hundreds are injured. On February 22nd, Viktor Yanukovych flees the country and Turchinov is put into power in the interim government. This is a good decision by the Ukrainians because they can have Turchinov in power while they try to go back to fair elections. On February 28th, however, the issue becomes more complicated as the Russians invade Crimea. What would be particularly frustrating about this issue is that while the Ukraine is drifting towards peace, the Russians are responding by invading Crimea to protect ethnic Russians when they are really creating more political unrest and more casualties. On March 11th, Crimeans vote to become a part of Russia while the Russian troops are occupying airports and other important locations on the peninsula. This would not be possible, though, because the utilities that it receives from the Ukraine. Putin annexes two parts of Crimea after access by Russia was approved. Since so many of the Crimeans are Russian, they see this as an opportunity to finally split from the Ukraine. On March 27th, the UN declares that what Crimea is doing is illegal. Russia should respect the integrity of the Ukraine and not be able to invade as it pleases, which ties in with target and agent groups. Ukraine is a target and Russia can be seen as the agent. Russia has been manipulating the government in the Ukraine for several years so that it can have a pro-Russian leader. The Ukraine, with its bad economy and smaller military, is completely unable to defend itself from Russia, and many parts of the country, like Crimea, see joining Russia as an opportunity. Russia is trying to devise plans for resolutions, but is unable to because Putin wants to annex at least a part of the Ukraine. One proposed resolution was to annex the eastern part, which holds the industry and would destroy the Ukrainian economy even more. Violence continues in the Ukraine today as more soldiers and protesters are being killed. Many people would not agree with fighting, and personally, I do not either. It is seen as unnecessary violence in the eyes of many, and many countries are hoping for peaceful resolutions for the Ukraine and for Russia.